Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, fan disaster. This is Battlefield 1. In today's weapon review, we're taking a closer look at the Autoloading 8.35 Marksman, available of course to the medic class in Battlefield 1. As we always do, we're going to start off with the stats of the weapon to give you a little bit of context on how it performs, at least in theory, and then move on to ideal usage and playstyle to better explain how to use this weapon in its ideal scenario. With that being said, let's start off then with the damage model of the weapon with a maximum damage of 42 and a minimum damage of 30. This thing hits like a truck and it gets a 3-shot kill all the way out, that is to say on normal damage models, to 47 meters. From 48 meters onwards, you're going to require 4 bullets, however, never more than 4. It comes with a fire rate extremely high for its damage model at 359 rounds per minute, making this one of the fastest time to kills available in the game for any class. Few guns can actually keep up with this on the battlefield in raw damage output. When we move on to muzzle velocity, things at least for the DMR or battle rifle category, more widely the medic weaponry, don't look too shiny with 660 meters per second. However, given its damage model and fire rate, it's obvious that this gun is to be used at close quarters and medium range and not necessarily for moving targets at longer ranges. Its magazine size is the clear caveat to its great performance, to its great stats. That's to say, this is what's holding this gun back from being absolutely OP. With a magazine of 5, you're not going to be able to take out more than one full health target realistically in any given scenario. Moving them from the magazine size to the reload times of the Autoloading 8.35 Marksman, well, they're not too rosy, especially given that, well, the magazine size of this gun is amongst the smallest we have in Battlefield 1. Reloading a single bullet will take you 2.467 short 2.5 seconds, with each additional shot requiring a further 0.5 seconds. If you reload all 5 shots, you can obviously use a strip clip, which will then take you 3.234 seconds short 3.2. Now, on the reload side of things, obviously, it's not too great. It's not horrible. It's not going to take you forever to reload. However, as we will get into a little bit later when we talk about playstyle with this weapon, you do have to be mindful of your reload, and you'll find yourself frequently, when getting pushed by enemies, actually whipping out your sidearm because you can't get the gun reloaded in time. Moving on then to the recoil side of things, with a vertical recoil of 0.85 and horizontal recoil, that's to the left and right, of 0.15, as well as of course the usual first shot recoil multiplier of 1, well, this gun doesn't actually have too much of a kick to it. That is to say, it's definitely very easily controllable, making medium range engagements, as long as you have the accuracy necessary, relatively comfortably doable. Moving on then to the accuracy of the weapon, well, stats here are looking rosy as well, with a base ADS, that is base accuracy spread, of 0.14 when aiming down sight and not moving. The gun is extremely accurate, and with an ADS while moving at 0.79, strafing for close quarter and medium range targets is also, especially more in close quarter, however, definitely an option. Its hipfire, well, it's obviously not meant for hipfire necessarily. Nevertheless, it can be used in close quarter scenarios if you must and have to. At 2.5, however, you should be aware that it's not going to be extremely accurate. With that out of the way, there's one other stat I'd like to mention in light that we are looking at a DMR. Its maximum fire rate while maintaining minimum spread. This is where you fire the gun and wait to fire off your next shot for the gun's spread to have reset itself, and this leads you to a lower fire rate, however a more accurate gun, especially useful for weapons with limited magazine sizes and weapons that you try to use at medium to long ranges. While the medium long range isn't necessarily appliant to this weapon, it can in certain scenarios be used, and the low magazine size of this weapon definitely means that you have to be accurate. And as such, mentioning here that this weapon performs 100% accuracy at 299 rounds per minute is definitely worth mentioning. With the stats then out of the way, let's move on to how you best use this weapon on the battlefield and what you have to take note of when trying to use this weapon. First things first, it's not an easy gun to use. If you're very bad in terms of accuracy, have difficulties tracking targets with DMRs or battle rifles or anything that fires in single shots and not fully automatic, this weapon is not for you. It's that simple. You're going to simply have to get more accurate and better at shooting moving targets with single firing weapons before you take up this gun. Essentially, this is the hardest, or one of the hardest DMRs, medic weapons, battle rifles, however you wish to call them, that you can choose in Battlefield 1. And it's not because of the gun itself, but for its magazine size. This is simply the fact that when you require 3 out of 5 bullets to down your target, close to medium ranges, at longer ranges we're talking about 4 bullets here, you simply have to be a confident and accurate player and cannot just hope and spray and pray for the best. An automatico AD-AD strategy is not going to work here. If that's your preferred playstyle, this weapon is just not for you. With that out of the way then, let's go back to that point on accuracy. 3 out of 5, 60%. It doesn't sound too bad, and in practice, it's definitely doable. However, the first time you pick up this weapon, unless you are by nature a very accurate player, which I personally cannot claim of myself, as most of my gameplay is plentiful example of, you're going to struggle with this weapon. And that's why you have to learn how to use this weapon and balance around the fact that, well, your accuracy isn't what the weapon necessarily always needs. In extreme close quarters and targets that are not moving too much, it's not a problem. At medium range, well, there's plenty of cover for you to step back, reload, and re-engage. However, it's in those close quarter situations where you have to act reactionary to your target. That is to say, you do not plan the engagement, or not specifically that engagement at that given time. You are surprised by it, and your enemy is the one who is engaging you. In those situations, you're definitely at a disadvantage unless you're an extremely good and extremely accurate player, which frankly, that level of accuracy most of us don't have, myself included. And that's why when you're using this weapon, you cannot play in a reactionary fashion. You have to play in a proactive, actionary fashion. You have to be the one choosing your targets and choosing when and where to engage them. Now, this sounds relatively complex. It really isn't. It means stick back that 2, 3, 4, 5 meters behind the front line, especially if you're playing the larger scale game modes, Conquest 64 players, Operation 64 players, and in certain situations, front lines as well. You cannot be the guy to storm the building with 5 enemy targets in it. That's just not the way this weapon works. It's a methodically, slow, thoughtful playstyle that will net you the reward that this weapon can offer, because it means that you basically nuke your targets all the way out to medium range, especially if they don't move. They're just toast unless they present themselves as very small target, or as said, they're moving. With this weapon, you're downing them very quickly, and while this won't be the case instantaneously when you pick up this weapon, you likely will require quite a few hours of practice before you can start hitting the fire rate of 300 or above with accurate shots. It's absolutely fine to use this weapon at a fire rate far below its maximum of 359 rounds per minute. Not only if you're shooting at 299 rounds per minute are you getting a more accurate weapon, and in certain scenarios, depending on the combat distance, this is definitely desirable and you're going to want to do this deliberately. However, it's also not a bad weapon even if you're using it with a lower fire rate. It just requires accuracy, and that's why when you use this weapon, always prioritize accuracy over fire rate. And this is, well, unusual to some players, including myself, who have gotten used to basically spam firing a number of the DMRs out there, and that more generally is actually bad practice. However, in this weapon, much more so, because you do not have the ammunition to back you up once you've missed 2 shots. With that being said, what are the benefits, the advantages of actually using this weapon? And while my gameplay is not the best illustration of how good you really can be, I've noticed that I, slowly but surely, am getting to the point with this weapon where I'm so confident in my engagement distances that I prefer it over most standard battle rifles available in the medic class. Well, the advantages are essentially that if you play this gun in the right way, you do have a leg up on your competition. As long as it's a one-on-one, well, you have the advantage. This gun has a damage output close to that of the Automatico, however, not only up to 15 meters, but all the way out really to where it's getting its 3-shot kill, so easily closing in on the 50-meter mark, specifically, of course, 47. What this means is a more flexible weapon, and flexibility is a strength, but that's not the only strength of the weapon. The strength of the weapon also lies in the fact that it is the fastest killing weapon at a number of engagement distances you'll be fighting at. You simply have the hardest hitting gun. With that being said, there's no doubt that this is not an easy weapon to use, and some of you out there will not find any joy in playing it, even after practicing with it for a number of hours. However, if you're up for the challenge and you're a decently accurate player, I would recommend that you spend a number of hours trying to make this gun work for you, because it can not only present a fresh gun to you for the medic class that most of you haven't used, and a slightly different playstyle from what you may be used to, but it's also quite enjoyable to use and offers clear advantages for those who can master. With that being said though, leave down below in the comments what your experiences are with the Autoloading 8.35 Marksman. Do you love it more like me, or hate it more like a number of other players out there? Also, feel free to leave down below in the comments any future video suggestions for any Battlefield 1 content. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. But with all that being said, I'd like to thank you very much for watching, and hope to see you in the next Battlefield 1 video.